Hi, I'm Cindy Abbott Letro for Behind the Camera, and I'm with Jess Conoplia, who is president of AFCI. I will let her tell you what that's all about. But we had an exciting announcement about a conference that's coming to Buffalo, and that is one that Jess is very much involved in. First of all, what does AFCI mean?
Sure. It stands for the Association of Film Commissioners International, and we are a global non-profit, a 501c3. Our members are mostly film commissions, so government economic development agencies, and they exist at the city, state, regional, and federal level.
And what do you do? I mean, it's one thing. I mean, I'm very familiar with what we do at Buffalo Niagara Commission, but how do you work on a global level?
Sure, that's a great question. We focus on four main things. One is giving our members, access to high-level decision makers. That's incredibly important. Two, we also have an education program, so we certify staff at film commissions to become certified film commissioners. We're also involved in advocacy and best practices. So we recently released a report just 2 months ago. It's a global best practices report on screen sector development. And then the fourth thing is this sense of community. I mean, whilst our members do compete with one another to a degree, there's also an incredible sense of community and synergy between them, which is wonderful.
Well, what I find so amazing is we are going to be the host. That was what the announcement was. We will be the host in September 2020. But this year, the previous year, It was in St. Petersburg, Russia.
Yes.
How do you go from St. Petersburg, Russia to, Buffalo, New York? And I don't mean by transportation. I mean, how is that decision made?
Look, sure. So every year we open up out to our membership to actually bid to host the event. We like to go where somebody wants to have us. And so we receive those bids and we do an evaluation. Our board does an evaluation and then we make an announcement. But we really look at a couple of things. There has to be a thriving screen industry wherever we're going. There's no point having a member who wants us to bring us to a particularly obscure location. There have to be things for people to do. I think secondarily, when it came to Buffalo, when you look at the explosive growth that's happened here in the screen sector in the last 10 to 15 years, we have a number of members who are perhaps Buffalo 10, 15 years ago. We also have a lot of members who have been around for decades and decades and very smooth running. But I think Buffalo is a perfect example of a particular patch that has just grown and at a rapid rate and is doing everything from what I feel so incredibly right.
Tell me about that, because of course we love to hear good things about our region. But the film credit that we have that has been given to us by New York State, in addition to the one that we received from the city, really I think sort of kicked off everything,
right.
Made it that finances are very important to filmmakers. But maybe you could say the things that we have done right, just so
of course
we can quantify it.
Of course, and I think in terms of incentives, rebates, and credits, I think they do play a very important part. There are certainly some filmmakers that will say we are driven by the creative choice. That happens. I sense that's certainly not the majority of cases, though. But what I see in Buffalo is, aside from having that support, you've also got this incredible connectivity between the commission and government and community, and that does not always happen.
And it doesn't. It really doesn't. Why is that, do you think?
I think not every government places emphasis on the importance of the screen sector and its value, in economic development. I think for a lot of countries that's been a relatively new thing, and I think for a lot of states that's still perhaps misunderstood. So part of the role we play, in for example, launching this best practices doc around screen sector development is to sort of start that document by explaining what's happened in the last 5 and 10 years, so people can really get a robust sense of what the economic development impacts are. When a production comes in, they might spend $30 million. Where does that go? And some people have a perception it goes to very specific businesses, but when you look, it's hotel room nights, it's vehicle rentals, it's lumber from the local lumber yard, and when incentives are given back, they're not going in the pocket of an actor or a producer. They're going to a production to help outweigh certain certain things they need to consider, but they're a very important part. And I think the fact that in Buffalo you have the state, providing that attractant, and then you also have what I would call the icing on the cake locally. I think that's terrific when that happens.
It's funny because it has been controversial, regarding the tax credit, but the sheer volume of product that really the industry is calling for now is one that I never imagined. And many years ago, The Natural was shot in Buffalo, and it was a great success. And at that time, people had hopes that, that the industry would grow, which it didn't until the tax credits came in. So there really is a definite sort of line that you can draw between the two.
And I think when you add in the current state of play, which is the huge emergence of the amount of content that's being created, and you have companies like Quibi, which are creating content, small short form content, that's a big game changer too. So I feel we went from film to TV, then we went to this thing called streaming, and now we're also looking at short form content. And on our advisory board we have Facebook and YouTube, and it's been interesting looking at that short form market, because they're often coming in spending the same amount of money as a feature film, but they just splice it up differently. But often legislation is not as I guess adept in handling that. It doesn't fit the box. So part of our role, I think, is to really inform our members and keep them up to speed with the latest trends that are happening in industry. And that's one of the reasons we've been working with Time's Up Entertainment on a report as well, to give a snapshot of the policies in place around diversity and inclusivity as well globally.
I denote a little bit of an accent there. What has been your career path? You're from Australia originally?
I am. So I guess my career path in this particular industry, I have a postgrad in film from Queensland in Australia. I worked for the Queensland Film Commission in Australia. I spent a little bit of time in China, living in Beijing. I moved to LA. I worked for the British Film Commission. I then went sort of back to China to work for Wanda Studios in Qingdao, and then I came to AFCI about 2 years ago. But I'd been a member of this organisation on and off for about 12 years, and I'm really happy my immediate predecessor came on board and made quite a few changes within the organisation that really, I think, have streamlined and had us really focused on things like best practices and membership. And as a result of that, we've seen quite a dynamic growth within our membership. I think countries that had previously never been a member, like Mongolia, Uzbekistan, Uganda, Slovakia, Greece, which had a new film commission. So it's a very exciting time.
I just wanted to quickly ask you about Time's Up, because the whole issue of diversity, women, minorities, people of color, and their representation within the industry is, it's a question that you could talk about for 20 minutes, but but is it one that is being taken seriously now?
It is, and it's certainly, we look at issues that are really being driven out of major production hubs, so, that would include, obviously, Hollywood as the epicenter, I guess. It's a very serious issue, and it's not only the issue of being able to have safe and secure reporting lines for things like harassment, but it's how do we get that representation on screen. And for our members being so diverse, we have members in 6 continents, diversity looks a little different in every place. So, for us, it's wonderful to have the opportunity to, bring in speakers from Time's Up to our events, so that our members really do get a robust understanding of, the importance of that, and also, to be honest, what territories are doing to support that initiative.
Well, it's an exciting time, and it's one in which anyone that loves film will want to make sure that they are that they mark that period in September. That Cineposium is going to be here. Thank you for chatting with us today.
My pleasure.
And hopefully you'll all join us again on Behind the Camera.